Hello everyone and welcome to this new video. In this video I will be talking about a very important topic and tool that you will always need to use in GCP. This is about gcloud command line tool or Google Cloud SDK. Now you can consider this as the Superman of GCP because you will be able to do almost anything with this tool, starting from a simple VM creation up to a very complex automation and workflow. So let's jump straight into the topics list that I have for you here. The first point, of course, is how you can download and install this. I'll be showing you the steps to download and set up. And after this, I will be showing you the first steps that you need to take after the installation, and then how you can view the current configurations that you change and set in this tool. And after that, I will be walking you through the steps and activities that you can do if you want to change configurations such as switching the project or switching the authenticated account or switching the region or zone and so on. And finally, I will show you how you can also add some additional components to the installation of the Google Cloud SDK. This is something very important because at one point you will need to do this, and I'm going to make it very easy and smooth for you to do this. So the first step for us here is to go to the download page and then downloading the installation file. This page actually is going to give you a lot of information. So if you go to the browser and if you type cloud.google.com/SDK, this will take you to the SDK page, and this is the product page that you would actually call it, but you really have to scroll down a little bit until the end of this page, or probably the first part of that, and you will see the tutorial section and the documentation. The first item here is the download and initialize the latest version of Google Cloud SDK. Now when you go to this article, it's going to give you a lot of information and instructions about how you can install the tool and what type of OSs are supported for this. So basically you can install it on almost any operating system with the generic Linux distributions and or the Ubuntu and Debian based Linux or the Red Hat and Fedora Linux. Of course Mac OS and Windows are also there. So in my case I'm using Windows. And in your case, if you're using any of these OS, then you can just switch to that tab and follow the instructions there. Then you can have it installed and ready to be used. So for the Windows, you probably have two ways to get the installer. You can click the download installer link, or you can type this PowerShell command, which will download the installer and probably trigger it for you so that you can do the installation. I'll just click the Cloud SDK installer. Then I will wait for this to be done. It's not a lot of stuff to download, but then this is just the installer. Now when I start it, it will ask me to actually select the components that I want to do and install, so it will download them and install them. So I'll click next. That's a very straightforward process. You just click next and then you agree to the terms of service without reading them. And then you choose the installation model, whether you want to install it for a single user or all of the users. It's up to you really. In my case, this is a testing VM, so I'll just go with all of the users. Then the installation location, and that's fine also. Then this is the component selection. So the default selection comes with the core libraries and tools, but then you can also have Python installed because this need to have Python. Then you can also include the cloud tools for PowerShell so that you can execute the PowerShell commandlets. And finally the beta commands. Now I'm going to leave the beta commands to the components topic because I will be showing you how you can install the beta commands separately. Also some additional components as well. So I'm fine with all of these. I'll click install. Then the installation will start, and if you want to see what's going on behind the scenes, you can click show details. This is going to show you what's going on, and as you can see, it's now downloading the core package or the core libraries of the gcloud command line tool. Now I'm going to pause here until the installation is done, then I'm going to resume and show you what happened during this period of time. So the installation is completed. It took a little while actually to be completed, but then that's done. So the next step here is to launch it and authorize it, or initialize it. And when I click finish, it's going to launch it and it's going to run this gcloud init. And this is the first way for you to authorize the tool. gcloud init will create some sort of a workflow, or this is a workflow that will trigger a few command line tools as well, a few commands such as gcloud auth login, and then gcloud config set project, and gcloud config set compute zone. So it's a combination of multiple commands that are going to run to set up your environment, or otherwise you can do the authentication and the environment setup through a set of multiple command lines, or doing these commands individually. You start by gcloud auth login and then gcloud config set project and so on. So let me choose to not do the gcloud init now and just launch the cloud SDK shell. Then I'll click finish. So this is the shell. Now you don't really need to launch it from its icon here, because now you'll see some icons in the start menu. But then you can just go to CMD or PowerShell, whatever that you want to use, and you can just type the command line here and it will be added to the environment variables, so that you can run it from everywhere in the system. So this is the starting point for you to work with gcloud and the command line tool. So let me clear this and let me start the authentication process by actually doing gcloud init. So I'll just type gcloud init. Then it's going to ask me to sign in. Once I sign in, it's going to ask me to set up an active project, and then it's going to ask me to set a default compute zone and region and so on. So would you like to log in? Yes. So I need to type my email address here. Then I will have to, once I type it correctly, then once I sign in, it's going to ask me to accept some permissions, and that will be it. And this is the acceptance for this. I will just click allow. That's it. It's going to show me now that I am authenticated with gcloud or the Google Cloud SDK. So I am now authenticated. The next step for me is to check back the command line interface, and this one is going to run another command for me, which is gcloud config set project, so that I can select the active project for me. And let's say that I want to select the third one, which is some project that I have some VMs on it. I will just select the number and type 3, and that is a very friendly way to set the project actually, because if you do a gcloud config set project, you have to type this ID. Probably just copy paste it and that's it. But here you just type the number. So now the configuration is done. What you can do here is you can first of all change or view the current project. So to do this, it's a very simple command line that is called gcloud config list. And this command will output 4 important pieces of information. First of all, it's going to show you the account that you're logged in with. Then it's going to show you the current active project, and after this it's going to show you the default region and zone if you have these set. But as you can see, these are not visible here. It means that these are not set, so we need to set those values. So in order to do this, it's a very simple command. Again, it's the gcloud config set compute region and gcloud config set compute zone. So gcloud config set compute / region. So you're setting the property of the compute, which is the region. Then, for example, I like to host my resources in Europe West 1, which is Belgium. So I would type Europe West 1. Then that's it. I will press enter. This is going to set the default region for me. Then I want to change the zone as well, because it's important to have those 2 values set in case some command requires a zone or some other commands require a region to be supplied. Then I will type, the next one is gcloud config set compute / zone. Then the zone is going to be Europe West 1 dash. Now each region contains multiple zones, and it doesn't really matter which zone you choose. So I'm going to choose Europe West 1C, so that at least I know that it's this zone that I'm going to use whenever I use the gcloud command line. Now this is going to affect only this environment, only this command line environment that you're using. It's not going to affect the default settings for your GCP environment. So you can set your GCP environment to some other region and zone, and you can set this command line environment to another region or zone. Now that we have set the important values that we want, it's time also to double check the configuration again. So gcloud config list, it's going to list the important information again. So now you can see it's listing the region and zone, and it's listing the account and the active project. So now what if you want to change the project? Let's say that you want to work on multiple projects and you want to move between projects. This is a very simple way, and it is one of the very common commands and frequent things that you will need to use with gcloud. And the first step for you is to list the current active projects that your account, this authenticated account, has access to. So to do this, it's gcloud projects list. Then when I press enter, I will see all of the projects that I have access to. This list contains the project ID, the name, and the project number. Of course, the name and the project number we don't really care about for this case. We care about the project ID. So for example, I want to change to this project, and all I have to do here is I have to copy the project ID, and then the command that I need to use is gcloud config set project, once I type it correctly, then the project ID, which is the one that I just copied, and that's it. Now if you set a project to some project that you don't have access to, you will get an error actually. So if I change this to something random like 5 or something, then you will see that it's going to change the property, but it's going to give me a warning that you don't appear to have access to this project because I really don't have access to it, or it does not exist. I don't really know if this exists or not. So let me get it back to my actual project, then this warning will disappear. If you want to change the authenticated user to see more projects, or to change to a project that you don't have access to with this account, but you have access to it with another account, then, and this is one of the most common things that you will need to do as well. So also the first step here is called gcloud auth list. This will list the currently authenticated accounts that you have, and you can choose or you can set the account to some other account if you have multiple accounts. And I used to use this a lot when I want to switch from my personal account to my work account and use some projects for work, and then switch back to my personal account to use my own projects. So if you want to add another account, then you will need to, if you don't see it here, then you need to log in with this account. And the step to do this is by gcloud auth login. Then you type the account name. So let's say that I want to log in with my other account, which is the Google Workspace one. If I type the domain correctly, that is. Then when I press enter, it's going to show me the login screen for this account. Then I will click use another account, and I will log in again. And once I sign in again, I have to click the allow button so that I can grant the permissions to that instance. And it will show me that you are now authenticated with gcloud. And then when I switch back to the command line, I see that the authentication is succeeded, and if I type the gcloud auth list again, I should see 2 accounts now, and I should see the active one is the one that I have chosen to add. Now after I log in, I need to remember to change the project to some project that I have access to. So again, you type gcloud projects list. This will list the projects that this account has access to, and as you can see now, there is a different list of projects that are available for this account. So you can simply choose one of these projects by copying the ID and then gcloud config set project, then the project ID. So in some other cases, you will need to authenticate with a service account and a key file. this is a very useful thing if you want to use this instance of gcloud, this one for automation and a lot of activities that are not tied to a human or not meant to be done by a human or a specific user, but rather to a service or the machine or the computer that is running the gcloud instance. So, and actually I've done this previously when I wanted to implement some sort of an automation system for a company where they wanted to trigger some sort of a pops-up messages when somebody upload files to Google Cloud Storage using gsutil. So I created a PowerShell script for them to do this and implemented it while having the gcloud authenticated using a service account with the required permissions only, with the minimal required permissions only, to ensure that the user's credentials are not changed or not expiring by using a JSON key file. For this to work, you will need to have a JSON key file, as just mentioned, and a service account created before that, of course. And for this, I have actually a very useful link, a very nice one, that's going to help you do the automations and the scripting. So this is an article and a guide from GCP. It's called Scripting with gcloud, a beginner's guide to automating GCP tasks. This is a very nice and a very awesome tool, actually, and a very awesome article along that. It's really awesome. You should really read it and, at least do something with this. It's going to get you started and put you on the right path to do a lot of automation with gcloud. And also, I've done a video before on how you can authenticate gcloud with a service account. You can check it up on the top left or top right side of the screen. That's going to help you also understand how the authentication process is done and set. Now, the final point that I have left here is actually changing the components of the gcloud installation. And basically, the components in gcloud are like plugins or add-ons. They add more commands and more functionality to the tools that you have. For example, if you want to work with BigQuery, then you will need to install a tool called BQ. Also, the beta commands, which is something we could have done in the installation of this, but I chose not to do it because I want to show you how to do it in here. And then also, if you want to work with Kubernetes engine, then you need to install kubectl and so on. So to list the available components that you can choose from, you can type gcloud components list. This is going to list the available components for you to install. And notice it's a table output. So if I scroll up a little bit, you'll see the status, the name, the ID, and the size. What we need to do for the installation is we should look for the ID. So for example, if I want to install the BQ command line, the BigQuery, then I should find the BigQuery, which is something at probably the bottom. This is the BigQuery, which is actually installed, unlike what I used to think before. What if you want to install the beta commands? This is found in here. You can also install the alpha commands, but this is something I don't really advise to use it in production. It's a good idea to see what's going to happen and what is coming to the command line tools and to the facilities and the features that you can have. But it's not a good idea to use the alpha because you don't really guarantee that they will make it to the core or to the GA release of the gcloud. So if you want to install beta, then you can simply copy the ID. Then you can do gcloud components install and then beta, which is the ID. This is going to start the installation process for these components. Now it might take some time depending on the size. So you see the beta commands are less than 1 MB in size, so it should not take a lot of time. So this is the installation prompt, and as you see, it's opened in a different command line screen, so that's fine. Now it's asking me if I want to proceed with the installation. I'm going to type yes, and then I'll click or press enter, and then it's going to create these steps, staging area, and then it's going to download stuff, unpack stuff, install stuff, and then it says that it's completed, and then it will do some cleanup. Okay, so the installation is completed. It took a little while as well, but then that's it, it's done. So I'll click or I'll press any key to continue, as they want usually. And then I can run the command, which is gcloud beta. You can see now it's going to list the stuff that I can use with the gcloud beta. Then Another way to install components, which is just typing the actual component name and it will trigger the installation. So if I type gcloud alpha, now it's going to ask me if I want to install it or not. Then if I want to do it, I can just ask, or I can agree to the installation. Otherwise, I don't really need to do anything, and then I can switch back to the beta or the core components. It's going to ask me if I want to install. So as mentioned, I'm not going to accept the installation here because I don't want to wait again. Then the final thing that I want to show you here that's left for me is updating the components, and that is a very straightforward step as well, which is called gcloud components. I think I typed it wrong. Update. So this is the command that will update the components for you if there are any components that are marked for updates or anything. So you see now the messages, all of the components are up to date. But if I type gcloud, just do it from here. If I type gcloud components list, you will see in the status column that if there is any update required or anything, then it will actually tell you that update required or update available or so on. So that's it. Hopefully this is a useful video for you. If you like the video, if you find it useful, and if it did help you actually get to go around with gcloud, please like it and please subscribe and check that or click on that bell icon so that you can get notified when new content comes up. And if you have any question or if you have any problem about anything, please don't hesitate to put it in the comments section. I will be very happy to interact with you and to engage with you as well. Please also check out my other videos on my website or blog. I put some articles there as well. And also check out my course on Udemy, the Google Workspace Administrator course. It's a very comprehensive and full course about everything that you need to work with and do in Google Workspace. And in some coming videos, probably in the future, I will be doing some more videos about automation with Google Cloud and gcloud specifically. You can automate stuff and activities and tasks. And until then, hopefully this will be a good starting point for you and a good help for you to find your way around in gcloud command line tool and getting started to doing things with this very awesome and very great tool.